Please welcome to the stage Whadjuk Elder and Community Leader, Uncle Barry Winmar.
Maman jana whoopin ye, whoopin ala buja ye, nala nunga buja ye. I begin by acknowledging my elders past and present, and today we gather on my ancestral land. This is the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people. I represent a people that has the longest continuous connection to this place for some 65,000 years. I represent elders and leaders that have welcomed visitors to these sacred lands for more than 3,000 generations. Welcome to country is a sign of mutual respect. I acknowledge and pay my respects to the Australian Labor Party for including a welcome to country as part of the Albanese government's launch today. From the beginning of time to the end, this is Noongar country. Noongar people have been graceful keepers of our nation for many, many years. We respect the earth, our mother, and understand. We belong to her. She does not belong to us. In all her beauty, we find comfort, and she has now a place for everyone who has now become keepers of Noongar country. We ask that you look, listen, understand, and embrace all the elements of Noongar country. This is forever our home. It's an honour and a privilege to be here today with you and all those diverse cultures that make up the wonderful Australia that we call home today. And we contribute to this country and build it to where we need it to be, which is a hard core value of the Labor Party. With the responsibility bestowed upon me by Noongar leaders and elders, I welcome everyone to this place and ask that the good spirits watch over each and every one of you and keep you safe while you're here, but also to ensure there's safe passage back to your homelands and the arms of your families and your loved ones. With the responsibility bestowed upon me, I say to you, Kai Wanju Ngan Jerpen, Nija Nunga Buja Data, Wangini Nunga Buja, Wanju. Hello and welcome. My heart is happy as we gathered here on Whadjuk Noongar Buja this morning, Perth, Boorloo. Welcome everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please be upstanding for the national anthem?
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth foretold, our hope is earth by sea. A land of mountain nations is, of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every state learn
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Uncle Barry, for that very warm welcome to Wajak Noongar Butcher. I'm delighted to welcome you all to Western Australia, to a city and a state that have played such an important part in our great Labor story. Now, I'd like you all to indulge me for a moment and think about your story. Think about why you're here today. Think about the light on the hill that drew you here. And maybe it's one of our great Labor legacies, Medicare, a national disability insurance scheme, education for all, universal superannuation. Or maybe it's the things that we've achieved together in the first term of an Albanese Labor government. Tax cuts for every Australian taxpayer, energy bill relief, cheaper medicines, cheaper childcare, real cost of living relief, free TAFE, fully funded public schools, interest rates down, jobs up, and wages moving again. Or, you know, maybe it's the story of a struggling single mother, or the story of the son of a single mum who grew up in public housing. The Labor Party is built on your stories. It's built on the stories of opportunity and of hard work and of aspiration. But these aren't just stories. They're actually powerful realities, because we all know that when Labor governments are elected, lives are changed for the better. And our stories don't just end here, because we do not stop. Guys, we're a movement, and that means momentum. Momentum to build a better future for all Australians. Now, you know what a Labor government has achieved in just one term. Now imagine what we can do in a second. We will build on our first term, reforming education from birth right through to adulthood, so that every child has the opportunity to thrive and the capacity to soar. We will make Australia a manufacturing powerhouse, making things right here, using our wealth, our critical minerals, our resources, our people, building the renewables for a clean future, a clean energy future, more tax cuts, more money in people's pockets, more Australians seeing a doctor for free. More people in employment and education, a more skilled workforce to meet the demands of our growing economy, and continuing our steady hand and steadfast commitment to Australia's national interests, both within our region and around the world. A country that bows to no one and looks down on no one. And we'll do this in the way that we've always done it, the Labor way, making a difference that ultimately lifts us all. But friends, none of this happens on its own. Every Labor member, every volunteer, every union member, everyone who has ever picked up a phone, knocked on a door, or handed out a how to vote card. We stand on your shoulders. And we need more of you out there, making those calls, knocking on those doors, having those conversations, one by one, changing those minds, letting people know that the best representative they can have in Parliament is a Labor representative. You know? Whether that's Zanita or Tracy or Sam or Trish or Tanya or any other of the wonderful Labor candidates we've got right across this great country. Because, friends, we are stronger together and we are better together. And for that, our nation is better. And nobody understands this more than our next speaker. Friends, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the stage our Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Richard Marles.
Well, thank you, Anne Ali. Beloved by our caucus in Canberra and a true champion for Western Australia. And there are two things I really admire about Anne and in fact all of our colleagues from the West. How good you are at working and how good you are at winning. And I thank you, Uncle Barry, for your wonderful welcome to country. And I also today acknowledge the traditional owners of these lands. 3 years ago, Australians made a choice and they made a change. You chose to end 10 years of cuts and chaos, of bad decisions and wrong priorities. You chose to stop our country sliding backwards, and instead you chose to build a better future. We couldn't fix everything in just 3 years, but we have fixed a lot and we've built a lot too. Real wages are going up again and inflation is going down. Jobs are being created and taxes are being cut. We've made childcare cheaper and medicines as well. We've saved Medicare from the Liberals' wreck and ruin. We've built 87 urgent care clinics and we're building 50 more. We fully funded public schools, delivered fee-free TAFE, and now we're cutting HECS debts by 20%. And that's just some of it in just 3 years. Soon, friends, Anthony will talk to you about all that has been accomplished under his leadership and building on the progress that we've made together, his ambitious agenda for a second term. Because while there is a lot to be proud of, there is still a lot left to do and to build. And there is so much that we must protect. All of that progress is at risk in this election. It could all be lost in less than 3 weeks. Which is why you see Anthony and his team working tirelessly every day of this campaign in every corner of the country. Because we know that to serve in government is a special privilege and we do not take it for granted. That's why Anthony spent the first Monday of this campaign right here in Western Australia, his 30th visit in just 3 years, talking about his plans to strengthen hospitals and Medicare. Peter Dutton, well, he spent the first Monday somewhere else, talking about something else. And he was on radio telling everyone that when he becomes Prime Minister, he really wants to live in a mansion on Sydney Harbour. Which, remember, is exactly where he was at a Liberal fundraiser when a cyclone was barrelling towards his home state of Queensland. Anthony was actually there in Brisbane with Defence Force personnel serving the community. Peter Dutton was on Sydney Harbour serving himself. And on that first Monday of the campaign, Albo was right here, delivering for WA, while Peter Dutton was dreaming of his new digs. Now, I think that sums up the difference in character between these two men. Anthony Albanese, who understands the power of his office and how he can use it to help Australians, and Peter Dutton, thinking about the perks of the office and what he can do with it to help himself. Now, you might think that starting an election campaign by announcing which mansion you'd prefer to live in is the height of arrogance. And you might also think that doing it in the very same week you're ending working from home is just so out of touch. And to be sure, you'd be right. But this is Peter Dutton. It's the same attitude he had when he was Tony Abbott's health minister in the last Liberal government. That is the one job he's had in his life that he conveniently forgets to mention on the campaign trail. But we have not forgotten. And Australians have not forgotten. They have not forgotten how he tried to cut $50 billion from public hospitals and bring in a GP tax. Or how he froze the Medicare rebate, pushed bulk billing rates off a cliff and brought Medicare to its knees. That's why doctors voted him the worst health minister in 40 years. And when Peter Dutton made those cuts, they had real consequences for millions of Australians. Every time you went to the GP, every time your Medicare card covered a little less of the bill, you were paying the cost of Peter Dutton. But Peter Dutton as health minister will look like a fairy tale compared to Peter Dutton as Prime Minister. And he's even boasted about his plans to perform, in his words, economic surgery on the country. Think about that. Dr. Dutton's economic surgery. That definitely sounds painful, and there ain't no way that's not going to hurt. Because there's only one procedure that Dr. Dutton knows how to perform: cuts and more cuts. Medicare, Dutton will cut it. Schools funding, Dutton will cut it. Energy bill relief, Dutton will cut it. TAFE, Dutton will cut it. New housing, Dutton will cut it. Jobs and wages, Dutton will cut it. In every part of government, in every part of life, in every part of our country, Dutton will cut and Australians will pay. And why does Peter Dutton need to cut? Why will Peter Dutton make you pay? So he can spend $600 billion on his precious pet project, a nuclear power scheme, which will take too long to finish, cost too much to build, and won't deliver enough energy. But it will most certainly increase your power bills. A nuclear power scheme using the most expensive form of energy there is, according to the CSIRO. I mean, literally every expert in the country has told him he's wrong, but he's just too stubborn to listen. And that $600 billion, well, that's money that has to come from somewhere. He has been far too busy taking his cues from other countries, from cuts and culture wars that have no place here. And he's been caught out this campaign trying to copy and paste policies from overseas to try and win an election here in Australia. In these uncertain times, we need leadership that is considered, not chaotic, reliable, not reckless. Anthony Albanese is providing the leadership Australia needs right now, and Peter Dutton could not be more different. And whether it's his nuclear power scheme, or his deep cuts to health and education to pay for it, or his plans for mass sackings, or his promise of higher taxes, or his working from home ban, Peter Dutton is just too out of touch and too untrustworthy, too arrogant and too extreme, too reckless and too risky to be the Prime Minister of our great country. And so, friends, that means that we have just 20 critical days to stop him and his cuts and to keep building a better future for the best country in the world. An Australian future where we stand up for our own values, not the Americanisation of our health system. Australia is a great country. We don't need to borrow our ideas, and we don't need to borrow our slogans either. There is just one man who can stop Peter Dutton's cuts and build that future for us all. And to introduce him, please welcome someone who knows a lot about building and a lot about winning, our Labor Premier for Western Australia, Roger Cook.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Richard. Look, before I start, I do acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, the traditional owners of this incredible country that we share, and we acknowledge their elders, past and present. Can I also thank Barry Winmar, the Deputy Mayor of Kwinana, bless him, for his welcome to country. Thank you very much, Barry, and great to see you here this morning. I acknowledge the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, members of federal and state cabinet, all elected members, every single campaigner, volunteer and supporter, unions and our workers, and in particular, those Western Australian campaigners who have gone back to back in their second campaign so far this year. Now, around 3 years ago, Anthony Albanese and the federal Labor team convened here in Perth to launch their campaign. And to be honest, he's barely been away ever since. He comes back to WA every other week, or so it seems. He brought cabinet to the mighty Pilbara, where so much of the nation's wealth is generated. He brought cabinet to Perth, the fastest growing city in Australia. He's even used a rare opportunity to bring Jodie for a holiday in the Kimberley. Across more than 30 visits, he's been to the suburbs, the towns, the businesses that make this state tick. And why wouldn't he? Several weeks after the fateful campaign launch of 2022, the first ever in this state, the Western Australian community helped propel federal Labor to an historic election victory. Well, friends, we're here to do it again. Now, Albo is a friend of WA's. But importantly, he's not been a fair weather friend. No other Prime Minister in recent history has invested as much in building their relationship with Western Australia than Albo. And that's not easy, especially when so much of federal politics takes place in the eastern states. It's a bit like the NRL, really. But Anthony Albanese has bucked the trend. He understands the importance of Western Australia, not just to the federal election, but to the prosperity of the nation, to our future as a renewable energy powerhouse, to diversifying our economy and making more things here, and to ensuring that there is no better place in the world to get a quality job. Albo is about the next generation, not the next news cycle. I want to take a moment just to revisit the era of the Liberal government, because it was not that long ago. It was not that long ago that many of our international relationships were in tatters. The Liberals shed friends faster than Elon Musk. And this affected more than our reputation. It affected our economy. They did it on defence plans for nearly a decade and famously upset the French. The French, of all people. They alienated Australia's Pacific Island neighbours by making insulting jokes about rising sea levels. They abandoned diplomacy with our top trading partner, China, in favour of aggressive rhetoric. This, of course, culminated in a legacy of Chinese tariffs against beef, barley, wine, timber and crayfish. As an export state, it was an appalling experience. Relationships that took years to build being trashed at the expense of local industries and local WA jobs. But over the last 3 years, bit by bit, the Albanese government has restored diplomatic relations. And at the same time, they've delivered cost of living relief to help Australians to weather the global inflationary crisis. They introduced tax cuts for everyone, not just the highest earners. And they have started an ambitious plan to bring Medicare back to its former glory following years of Liberal neglect. What's more, we now have a path forward for our defence, with WA at the forefront of these plans. We now have a strategy for a renewable energy future, with WA's resources industries forming a vital part of the energy transition. We now have thousands upon thousands of students training for these jobs of the future through free TAFE courses. Anthony Albanese has been WA's partner in Canberra. We see eye to eye. I've known Anthony for a long time. He listens. He has empathy. He has energy and tact. He remembers his roots, and he is living proof that in Australia, a boy from public housing can realistically aspire to the highest office in the land. But most importantly, he has an actual vision for this country that we all love and call home. So, I implore all of you here today to spread the word. If you want to keep building a strong, diversified economy, vote Labor. If you want to keep renewable energy future, vote Labor. If you want to keep building more homes, vote Labor. If you want a healthier future with cheaper medicines, affordable appointments, and better aged care, vote Labor. And if you want to make more things here, vote Labor. We are the party that will deliver.
Australians deserve a Prime Minister who shows up, who takes responsibility and who works with people.
And that's what we got, starting by raising the minimum wage.
People who are on the minimum wage are the heroes who saw us through the pandemic. These workers deserve more than our thanks. They deserve a pay rise, and today they've got it.
We turned the Secure Jobs Better Pay Bill into law and closed the loopholes with same job, same pay. We also passed our emissions reductions targets into law because we support renewables. In just one term, we're already at 46%. We're bringing down the cost of medicines, saving Australians $200 million a year, and giving even more cost of living help, energy bill relief, reduced HECS debt, and tax cuts for every taxpayer. We made the biggest advancement in Medicare since Medicare.
Where you only need your Medicare card, not your credit card, is what Medicare urgent care clinics are all about.
We've been repairing Australia's relationships. We've rebuilt strong ties with our nearest neighbours by taking real action on climate change and strengthened our relations in the Indo-Pacific so we are more resilient and less reliant on individual markets. And we are delivering a future made in Australia, free TAFE and practical support for our manufacturing industries.
We want to make sure that there's a fifth and a sixth and a seventh generation steelmaker here in Whyalla.
This first term has been about building strong foundations, and we know they're strong because despite global instability, the Australian economy is turning a corner. We've halved inflation, created 1 million new jobs, and paid down Liberal debt, and interest rates are heading down. Strong foundations, steady leadership, and a clear vision. That's how we are building Australia's future.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce the Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese.
Well, thank you to whoever just yelled out. But also thank you to Roger. You are a great Labor Premier and a very true friend. You always stand up for Western Australia, and our Labor government stands up with you. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and I pay my respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. My fellow Australians, 3 years ago in this great state, my colleagues and I launched our election campaign. We asked the people of Australia to honour us with the responsibility of serving as their government and to join us in the work of building a better future. 3 years ago, Australians chose Labor to end the decade of denial and delay on climate change and embrace the opportunities of renewable energy, to reject the insult of wages being kept deliberately low and build an economy that rewards people for their hard work, and to stop treating equality for women as an afterthought or a curiosity and make it an economic and social priority. Australians chose Labor to deliver cheaper childcare, save bulk billing from freefall, rescue aged care from crisis, to rebuild our relationships in our region and restore our place in the world. Each and every day of the past 3 years, our government has worked to deliver on these commitments, to repay the trust that people placed in us, to turn those promises into progress, to build the stronger economy, fairer society, and more secure future that all Australians deserve. 3 years later, there is still Liberal mess to clean up, still challenges to meet. There is still uncertainty that we must confront. And we are determined to keep helping and keep delivering for people under financial pressure. That is what drives us. That is why we seek a second term. Not because we think the job is done, but because we know there is still so much work to do. And because only Labor has the plan to do it. My fellow Australians, at this election we are asking for the opportunity to keep building, to reward your hard work, to open the doors of opportunity for the next generation and widen them, and to give new life and meaning to our values of fairness, aspiration and opportunity for all, to keep building on everything that makes this nation the best country in the world. Friends, when we came to government less than 3 years ago, inflation was going up, real wages were going down. Together we've turned that around. Inflation was over 6% and rising. Today it's down to 2.4%, and it's falling. Real wages have grown 5 quarters in a row. Interest rates began to rise before the last election. Now they have started to fall. And more than 1 million jobs have been created on our watch, more than any time, any term since Federation. The story of our government is how we got here, the way we came through a global storm, because we refused to sacrifice people's jobs. We refused to cut the services Australians rely on and the wages they earn. We made responsible choices for the economy, and we did the right thing by families. That's what Labor does in times of global uncertainty. We choose the Australian way, helping people under pressure, all the while building for the future, navigating the rough seas while always keeping our eyes on the horizon. That's why we have backed real wage rises for millions of workers and cut taxes for every single taxpayer, not just some. So Australians can earn more and keep more of what they earn. Today, in workplaces around our country, casual employees have new security. Same job, same pay is now law. Under Labor, people have the flexibility to work from home. And what's more, when they get home from work, they have the right to disconnect. Women's economic participation has reached record highs and the gender pay gap is at historic lows. We've expanded paid parental leave and added superannuation to it. And we have established 10 days paid family and domestic violence leave. We understood that no woman should ever have to risk her safety in order to keep her job. Today, families are paying less for childcare and early educators are being paid more. And under Labor, bulk billing is on the way back. $87 new Medicare urgent care clinics are open right around Australia. Promised 50, delivered 87. What's more than 1.3 million Australians, about a third of them under the age of 15, have visited them. Mums and dads able to take their child to see a doctor close to home, and all they need is their Medicare card. And we will open another 50 clinics, including another 6 right here in WA. Under Labor, aged care workers have secured a historic pay rise. And there is a registered nurse in aged care 99% of the time. Like so much else, the Liberals, when we promised this, said it couldn't be done. And after 14 years ago, my friend Julia Gillard commissioned the Gonski Review, setting the national standard for every Australian child in every Australian school to get the best education, not just for themselves, but for what that contributes to the nation. We have signed up every single state and territory to deliver the funding and reform to reach that goal. Better and fairer funding for every school because we value every student. Under Labor, public TAFE is back at the centre of vocational education, helping 600,000 Australians train or retrain for free. And Australia has resumed our place as a leader in our region, a neighbour that the Pacific can count on, and a nation engaged in the world. My fellow Australians, these are the strong foundations that we have laid together. Now we have to keep building new homes, new infrastructure, new energy, and more than bricks and mortar, the building blocks of a good life for you and for your family. Labor's plan for building Australia's future is about your future, your job, your wages, your education for your child and your Medicare, making you better off over the next 3 years. Because we understand that prosperity and security for our country begins with creating opportunities for our people. We know the best way to take our nation forward is to help you get ahead. By contrast, today and every day, our opponents are urging Australia not to go forward, to go back. Keep in mind that this is not some new generation Liberal team. These are the same people from less than 3 years ago. The same people pushing the same policies that inflicted a wasted decade on our country. They want us to go back to that. If anything, they want a more extreme version of it. Back to chaos and confusion. When this moment demands measured leadership and safe hands. Back to people working for less. Back to neglecting veterans and hounding the vulnerable. Back to the phony conflicts and borrowed culture wars that we didn't want under Scott Morrison and we cannot risk under Peter Dutton. And back to the cuts that pushed schools and aged care and Medicare and the NDIS to breaking point. Amidst all the noise of the Liberals campaign, this much is clear. They have not learned, and Peter Dutton will never change. This is not a time to risk Australia's future by going back to the failures of the past. This is not a time for cutting and wrecking. This is a time to keep building and to keep building with Labor. Over the past 3 years, the world has thrown a lot at Australia. The worst global inflation since the 1980s, the biggest global energy crisis since the 70s, conflict overseas, strategic competition in our region, natural disasters here at home, and even in the course of this campaign, new global economic uncertainty. Now, we cannot control or predict what challenges we will face, but we can determine how we respond. On the 3rd of May, this choice belongs to every Australian. Your vote may not change the world Australia has to deal with, but your vote will decide how Australia deals with the world. Right now, the Liberal and Labor campaigns are on either side of this mighty continent. And at this election, our ambitions, our agendas, our plans for the future are a world apart. The Liberals want a copy from overseas. Labor stands up for Australia. They talk our country down. We build Australians up. We're optimistic about our nation. They just constantly talk us down. Under Labor, Australia decides the investments we make in our defence, our security and our international relationships in our national interest. We trust in our values and we back our people because we know that a changing global economy demands better schools and TAFEs and universities, not cuts to education. Trade tensions mean we need to engage in our region and make more things here in Australia, not cut manufacturing. And growing global demand for clean energy means building more renewables here and now, not waiting 2 decades for more expensive nuclear power. Friends, when we look at everything going on around the world today, there is nowhere else you'd rather be than right here in Australia. That is why I ask, why on earth would we try to mimic anywhere else? We don't want a wages system where people have to rely on tips to make ends meet. We don't want Australian students burdened by a lifetime of debt. And we never, ever, ever want an American-style health system in this country. Extraordinarily, the Liberals have been busy claiming they would have already done a deal with the United States on tariffs. Labor stood up for Australian farmers and producers, and we've made it clear that our pharmaceutical benefits scheme is not up for negotiation. I say this to the Australian people. As Prime Minister, Australia's health system, every bit of it, is not some bargaining chip. It's not a commodity. It is part of our identity. This card is green and gold for a reason. Medicare is a declaration of Australian values that no matter who you are, what your background, what your income is, you will get the care that you need with this. And that doesn't happen all around the world. We cannot take it for granted. And a vote for Labor will mean that this card carries even more value. Labor is the party of Medicare. We created it and we will strengthen it. With the biggest investment in bulk billing in Australian history, better funding for every hospital, new progress in women's health, 31 new and upgraded Medicare mental health centres, 50 more Medicare urgent care clinics, thousands more GPs, thousands more nurses and thousands more midwives, and millions of Australians in every part of our country who will be able to see a doctor for free. Helping people find a bulk billing doctor is just one of the ways we're acting on the cost of living here and now. Cheaper childcare for over 1 million families. More energy bill relief, $150 off the power bills of every household and for small business, taking 20% of student debt for 3 million Australians, saving an average of $5,500 each. Cracking down on supermarkets that rip people off, bringing the price of PBS medicines down to just $25 a script. That is the lowest it has been since 2004. And if you're a concession card holders, we've frozen it for the rest of the decade to just $7.70. Back-to-back increases in rent assistance, and something I'm really proud of, expanding the single parenting payment. And of course, we had the courage and the conviction to change the tax cuts that we inherited to make them better and fairer for low and middle income earners. And this wasn't a one-off. It doesn't just disappear. It won't be replaced a year later by higher taxes on everyone, which is what our opponents are actually offering at this election campaign. We are cutting taxes again and again for all 14 million taxpayers, not just some. Our top-up tax cuts put an average of $2,500 back in people's pockets for every taxpayer, every year, forever. We are taking immediate action and we're building to last, making free TAFE permanent, locking in our 3-day guarantee for early education, the next step to universal childcare. We will help people bring down their power bills once and for all by cutting 30% off the cost of a battery. And we'll finish the NBN with fibre, not copper, by the way, and keep it in public hands. Let's be clear. At this election, the Liberals and the Nationals are actually promising to legislate a permanent increase in income tax for all 14 billion Australians. We are always looking for ways to make the tax system work better for working people. And today, the commitment that we're announcing will do precisely that. Today, I announced that a re-elected Labor government will create a new $1,000 instant tax deduction. This will guarantee that everyone can opt for an automatic tax deduction of $1,000 on their work expenses. No paperwork, no box of receipts, no scrolling through your online banking. Just tick the box and your return's ready to go. Every year. Every year, millions of people who work part-time or work from home or don't have an accountant to navigate the tax system for them, they miss out on claiming deductions they're entitled to and they pay more tax than they should. This reform fixes that, and it fixes it forever. It takes away the hassle of tracking your expenses, especially if you work from home, and it gives you back more of your own money faster. Importantly, if you're in a job where you spend more than $1,000 each year on your uniform or equipment, you can still claim a higher deduction in the usual way. No one will be worse off under this reform, but I make this point. Nearly 6 million taxpayers, overwhelmingly low and middle income earners and young Australians, will be better off. Under Labor, you earn more, keep more of what you earn, and now you get more back at tax time as well. Friends, Labor stands up for Australian values, and we're backing the great Australian dream. Buying a first home has never been easy, but for this generation, it's never felt further out of reach. And it doesn't have to be that way. Not here, not in Australia. In Australia, home ownership should not be a privilege you inherit if you're lucky. It should be an aspiration that Australians everywhere can achieve. Making this a reality begins with recognising that things are fundamentally different for this generation. In 2025, there are many Australians on incomes where any bank would offer them a typical home loan and they would be able to make the repayments, but they just cannot save up the 20% deposit. These are young Australians who are stranded just below the first rung on the property ladder. Working hard, making sacrifices, but watching in frustration as house prices rise faster than they can save. That saps your confidence in yourself, but also in the system. And at the moment, if you can't get that 20% deposit, the only other option you have is to pay $20,000 or more in mortgage insurance. The only thing that buys you is higher repayments down the track. Now, this is no kind of choice at all, and our Labor government is going to fix it. Today, I announce that under a Labor government, you'll be able to buy your first home with just a 5% deposit. Our 5% deposit plan will be open to every Australian looking to buy their first home. It will be available for homes valued all the way up to the average price in every city and region. And you won't have to pay a single dollar in mortgage insurance. Our government will cover it. If you're looking to buy your first home, Labor's got your back. And if you want to know the difference this will make, think about this. The median price of a home in Australia is around about $820,000. 5% of that is $41,000. The last time that $41,000 was enough for a deposit was more than 2 decades ago, way back in 2002. This is a generational change that will empower a new generation of first home buyers. In every city and region, this will make home ownership easier. It will take years off the time it takes to get together a deposit. So instead of trying to save while your rent pays someone else's loan, you're paying off your own mortgage in the security of your own home. You have the strong foundation to start a family and build a good life in a community that you love. Friends, Labor supports renters. Of course we do. But unlike the Greens political party, we don't think people should have to rent forever. And unlike the Liberals, we don't think young Australians should have to sacrifice their superannuation to buy their first home. This generation of Australians should not be forced to choose between the opportunity of home ownership and security in retirement. Australians deserve both, and Labor is building both. Australia's housing crisis has been a generation in the making, compounded by a decade of Liberal neglect. For half of their time in government, can you believe they didn't even bother to have a housing minister. The Liberals dug Australia into a hole on housing. Under Labor, we are building our way out because we know supply is the key. Unless you have policies that boost supply, all you are doing is increasing costs. It's that simple. And that's why, to reach our goal of 1.2 million new homes by the end of the decade, we're training more tradies and apprentices with free TAFE and incentives to go into construction. We're building more public housing. We're building more affordable housing. We're building more homes in remote communities. And through build to rent, we are building more private rentals. And today, we keep building. Today, I announced that Labor will invest $10 billion to build 100,000 new homes reserved for first home buyers only. No competition from property investors, just a fair crack for young Australians. We've seen this work in South Australia. We will bring it to the national level with national leadership because we want Australians to be able to afford a home where they want to live, close to their family, friends, work and community. Through a decade in government, the Liberals invested less than $5 billion in housing over an entire decade. Labor is now delivering our $43 billion Homes for Australia plan, 8 times bigger and 100 times better. This is the biggest home building program since the post-war housing boom. Back then, Ben Chifley's Labor government said that housing was, to quote Ben, not only the need, but the right of every citizen. That was Labor's mission then, and it is Labor's mission now. Because the right to a roof over your head and the aspiration to own your own home doesn't belong in the pages of history. It is fundamental to Australia's future as we go forward. Friends, what drives Labor's campaign is what drives our Labor government, delivering for people, making a positive difference in the life of every Australian. Meanwhile, the Liberals have spent this campaign talking about abolishing everything from the Department of Education, the Department of Health, sacking public servants, banning work from home. My opponent is happy to talk about measuring up the curtains at Kirribilli House. But there is something he very rarely talks about. The N-word. The cost of his nuclear scheme. And the cuts he will make to pay for it. In Collie here in WA, just like their other nuclear reactor sites that the Liberals talk about but don't want to visit, their scheme will mean shutting down renewable energy projects that are already under construction. I've been there. I've seen it. The massive batteries that will connect up with the transmission lines that will power southwestern Australia. If the Liberals and Nats had bothered to listen to those communities, they would know that. Instead, after a decade of chaos and pushing 23 different energy policies without landing one of them, they are now trying to sell a nuclear scheme that will close manufacturing centres, derail new investment in the regions, and drive up power bills for everyone. And they will charge the lot of it, the whole $600 billion, to the taxpayer because the private sector doesn't want to touch their nuclear scheme with a barge pole. Our government has a 43% emissions reduction target for 2030. We have legislated net zero by 2050. We have one energy policy and we are delivering it. Driving record private sector investment in renewables backed by gas, hydro and batteries. Our plan means energy security, environmental responsibility and economic sovereignty. It will power a future made in Australia so we can make more things here, so we can secure the jobs of workers in energy and mining and manufacturing. Our plan will bring the next generation of good jobs to people and communities in every part of our country. The Liberals want us to turn our backs on all of that, to forfeit our nation's unique advantages, a combination that nowhere else in the world can match. Our sunlight, our space in this vast continent, our natural resources, our skills and technology, and risk it all on nuclear reactors that won't be ready until sometime in the 2040s. The private sector can already see that nuclear doesn't stack up here, which is why the Liberals will send the bill, all $600 billion of it, to the people of Australia. Now, we know they will sack 41,000 people. We know they will increase income tax for 14 million taxpayers. But even those two measures combined is really a drop in the ocean. $600 billion represents more than 18 years of Medicare or 20 years of schools funding. That money has to come from somewhere. And never forget the last time a Liberal opposition leader promised no cuts to education and no cuts to health. They ripped $30 billion out of schools, and Peter Dutton himself ripped $50 billion out of hospitals and tried to abolish bulk billing altogether. My message to every Australian is this. If Peter Dutton won't tell you what cuts he will make before you vote, if he refuses to say where the $600 billion for these nuclear reactors will come from, then every other promise that he makes is worthless. There is only one way to protect schools, protect TAFE, protect hospitals, and protect Medicare from the Liberals' cuts. Vote for a majority Labor government on the 3rd of May. Friends, for hundreds of years, in England and across Europe, when people needed to describe something impossible, something that simply couldn't exist, they would say it was like a black swan. The rest of the world was certain that there was no such thing as a black swan until Europeans sailed up that river just out there and saw them by the thousands. Today, the black swan is the proud symbol of Western Australia. And that is the story of Australia. We're not shackled by old thinking. We're not captive to the habits and fears of the past. We're enriched by every faith and tradition on earth, including the world's oldest continuous culture. But Australia's character has always been our own. We have the courage and the strength to choose our own way, to build the future we want based on the values that we cherish. Because Australia didn't copy the idea of a decent minimum wage from anywhere else in the world. We created it here. We didn't steal the idea of universal superannuation from somewhere else. We made it here. We didn't wait on other countries to strengthen our democracy by ensuring women could vote in elections and stand for parliament. We led the world. And we certainly didn't settle for a second-hand or second-rate health system. We built the best. We built Medicare. That is the Australian way. That is the Labor way. And that is the choice I'm asking the Australian people to make on the 3rd of May. Friends, Labor's vision for this great country, our plan to build Australia's future, isn't about borrowing ideologies or copying policies from anywhere else or anyone else. It's about building on what has always been our nation's greatest strength, the Australian people, their effort and talent, their creativity and genius, their love of this country, their faith in the fair go. Everything that brings us together as Australians and sets us apart from the world. That's why I'm asking Australians to vote Labor on the 3rd of May so we can keep building a future that is true to our values and worthy of our people, where no one is denied the chance to be their best. No one left to face uncertainty alone. No one cut off from the opportunities that lie ahead. No one held back and no one left behind. Every one of us building Australia's future together.
Authorised P. Erickson, ALP Canberra.